Okay, so I'm back with part 7. Let's get started. The bridge. Naruto was happy Kyuubi had worked him into the ground for giving him hope instead of fear. Now Naruto was allowed a night of peace. Even as he slept, he had felt the others leave. It was a lesson his Heims taught him. Always be prepared and on guard. Now, that was how he knew of the 2 extra chakra signatures that entered the house. Let go of mommy, yelled Inara. And that's how he was aware of the enemies. He was already downstairs. He had concealed himself and observed. One of the 2 swordsmen thugs were holding onto the bound Tazumina. The second was making his way towards Inra, drawing his sword. Stop, Tazumina cried. If you kill him, then I swear I'll bite my tongue. Even these thugs knew she wasn't bluffing. Fine, the first you said. You got lucky, kid. The one closest to Indra kicked him down. Much to everyone's surprise, he stood back up. Naruto decided it was time to make himself known. You did good, Indra, he spoke. Your dad would be proud. It looks like one of the ninja was left behind, one spoke. It seems so. Naruto returned calmly. What will you do now? Do, he asked. Nothing. We have all the cards, he motioned to Tazumina. We are leaving and you will stay. Or we will start cutting this one. The other threatened, pulling his sword to Tazumina. Cut who? Naruto asked. The thugs looked at Tazumina. To their surprise, she merely faded away. They looked and saw that she was next to Naruto. She no longer bounded and was hiding and holding Inara lightly. They drew their swords and took a menacing step forward. Wait, Tazumina cried. You want money, right? If I give it to you, will you leave? The 2 thugs looked at each other. They shared a cruel smile to Tazumina and said, Sure. Naruto knew it was a lie. It was very obvious. He was also sure that Tazumina could tell it was a lie. He decided to see what she had planned. It's in that scroll at your side, she pointed. It has everything we have. It's a ninja tool. All you have to do is open it. The 2 snatched it up and opened it. Inside was a letter. They read the letter out loud to all to hear. Dear Naruto-kun, we are at the bridge. P.S. Dodge. As they read the last part, a violent stream of kunai shot out. As many of them embedded themselves inside the thugs, they fell down dead. Mom, how did you know that would work? Asked Inara. That scroll was from Uncle, wasn't it? Naruto asked. She had a lot more kunai than usual this time, he thought. Uncle-san wanted me to give it to you, Tazuna admitted. She told me how it works so it wouldn't hurt me. Were you really going to give it to me? That's something he needed to know. They're waiting for you at the bridge, she said, answering his question. The bridge. As Naruto entered the scene, he noticed the air was laxed with chakra because of the mist. It was much more potent with the extra water. This would make it difficult for Naruto to use his sensory skills that he relied on. He dropped his blindfold so that he could see. He didn't like it. His eyes hindered at hindered his sensory skills. He headed towards the closest signatures. They were two. They were the side and by far the weakest. Hello, Tazuna, he greeted, nearly scaring Tazuna and Sakura half to death. Kid, are you trying to give me a heart attack? He asked. Not yet, spoke, but I'm so close. Baka, screeched Sakura, but never finished. Paralyzing jutsu. What? Naruto asked. Don't look at me like that. She's better off that way. He continued, motioning to her frozen body. Now you have a proper meat shield, one that won't run. Tazuna thought it through over and admitted he was right. I can't think of a single thing against that, Tazuna admitted. So what have I missed so far? Asked the blonde. The scarecrow one is fighting Zabuza, Tazuna began. The kid and the snake lady are fighting against a new enemy in there. He pointed to the ice stone. I guess I'll go save the Uchiha, Naruto stated, after a moment of thinking. What about your girlfriend? Tazuna asked. She's inside that thing, too. Who do you think I'm gonna save him from? The blonde asked. The dome. Sasuke was not doing too well. He had so many needles inside of him that he looked like a pincushion. Anko was doing much better. She had a few needles inside her, but it could have been worse. She would be doing better if it wasn't for one problem, Sasuke. Why? Because she had to keep saving him from the hail of needles. Dodge, she shouted, knocking him away as she too jumped away. If the Uchiha dies, then the council would blame either me or Naruto, if not both. I can't let that happen. Woman, I demand you stop doing that. I am an Uchiha. I do not need saving from somebody. Sorry, kid, but I can't have you dying, she stated. I'm an Uchiha. I don't need saving, he shouted. Now watch as I end this fight. He began weaving hand signs, fire style, fireball jutsu. The flames spread onto the ice mirrors. Anko would have been impressed if she hadn't seen Uchihas at his age do the same thing, or better. Soon the flames died down to reveal the damage of the fire towards ice. Nothing. Good job, Genin, she laughed. I think I can see a stream of water dropping. Please surrender, Haku pleaded. There is no need for your debts. Haha, you see, shouted Anko. Sasuke, my flames must have done more damage. Now the enemy is weak. Why else would she be asking to end? Yeah, whatever, kid, stated Anko. She knew that the enemy was just being merciful. Haku prepared to give off another volley of Senbon. Anko prepared to tackle the Uchiha to safety. Sasuke prepared for something else. He stepped onto the tail of Anko's jacket. He began to channel chakra like Kakashi had taught him. As soon as he stuck himself and Anko to the ground, this will teach her, he thought. As the attack came, Anko prepared to jump. However, she was being held by something. Looking back, she saw the Uchiha's arrogant smirk. The attack came, and Anko took the full brunt of it. The needles were in every part of her. Sasuke had used her as a shield. She took another look towards Sasuke. Traitor, she gasped. You should feel honored, he smirked. You got to stay that you got to say that you were useful to an Uchiha. That's the greatest honor. If there's is an if there is any consolation to this, she spoke with a smirk of her own, it's that you will die along besides me. I'm an Uchiha, he stated. This ice ninja won't be able to kill me. I'm not talking about the ice ninja, she pointed, closing her eyes before she did. Sasuke turning to see what she meant. Entering the ice mirrors was Naruto himself. He had seen everything, the whole thing. Uncle-chan, he cried, running towards her side. Wake up, Paim, please wake up. All he got was a lifeless limb. He held her over as he cried, please give her back to me. Don't take one of my hands. Make them hurt, spoke a familiar fox. They dare hurt your mate, your Heim. Hurt both of them. Yes, they dare to harm her. Use it, the fox continued. Use what I taught you. Use the fear you collected and make them know fear. Naruto looked Haku in the eyes. He needed eye contact for this. He didn't need to see her. He didn't need to see her, just for her to see him. Shin no Ippon Stage 1. Success. The technique worked. The technique froze her in place. It was temporary, but she would break it. But enough was enough. Naruto drew his sword. He held it towards his face and looked into the reflected eyes. Using his fox glare, he began. Shino Ippon Stage 3. He was fear, and fear feared nothing. Over his head, chakra began to form of an image of a smiling fox. His hedge had dropped. He no longer cared for it. He felt the fear that he'd collected. He let it out as it consumed him in a red aura. It sent him past the peak of his abilities. His power only continued to grow. He would make them suffer, he thought. Standing to full height, he glared at the frozen faces before him. His blue eyes were now crimson red. He had a coat of red chakra that seemed to flow around him like a second skin. It was wild and uncontrolled. He looked and saw that they were afraid. It wasn't enough. He wanted them to be terrified. He wanted them to be in true despair. You dare touch my Heim, spoke Naruto, as his rage and bloodlust grew. You dare hurt my Heim? He yelled. Out of my way, dope, spoke Sasuke. This is my... Sasuke never finished. Naruto didn't even turn as he kicked him into a mirror behind them. But he didn't stop there. The force of the impact shattered the mirrors. Sasuke slided straight through it. He landed in a broken heap next to Tazuna and the frozen Sasuke. Haku was terrified. This wasn't the same boy she had met in the woods. It was as if he had taken everything that scarred her. Haku saw that he was ready to attack. Using her mirrors, she summoned her reflection to appear in each one. As each of them pulled their hand back and threw needles and threw another hand stopped them. Each of them It was Naruto. He was inside the mirrors behind her. Each of them. He easily held her hand as she struggled against him. He grabbed her by the throat with his free hand. She struggled as he forced her to look forward. She saw she was looking at her reflections as they were being restrained as well. How did he get inside? She thought. He let go of her throat. That was. Now that she was looking, he drew his sword and leveled it to her neck. In a flash, he began to slash her throat. She felt the blade give her a fatal blow. She watched as her reflections bled out, waiting for her cut. Sorry about that, but it never came, and she opened her eyes. She could see him standing there in the middle of the dome. He hadn't moved. That's right, it's only a genjutsu. He can't hurt me. She would stay in the mirrors, and she wasn't safe. And she was safe. There, right? It's only a genjutsu. Wrong. He spoke as if reading her thoughts. Just because you're covered in ice doesn't mean you can't be touched. He spread his jacket out as she could see the crimson interior. That wasn't what he wanted her to see. From several points in his jacket, hook chains shot out. They flew straight into the mirrors, digging into her flesh. She had never felt such pain. As more continued to pierce into her, they pulled, forcing her out of the mirror. Each step was painful, more painful than the last. They stopped pulling as soon as she was in front of Naruto. She looked into his eyes and saw nothing. She saw something she wished she hadn't. This wasn't the same boy that she had met in the woods a few days ago. This is someone who truly wanted to see her suffer. I'm going to tear your mind apart, he whispered, and he was going to make it happen. The chains released her as an invisible force pushed her back. She continued to strain through the mirrors, just as the Uchiha did. Haku, however, landed between the two battling Jonin. The shock of what happened stopped them mid-battle. They looked towards the one who had caused the interruption. Zabuza couldn't believe it. Haku was down in a bloody heap. The shock was so great that he stopped giving chakra to the mist. This revealed Naruto. The reddish blonde was making his way towards Haku. Zabuza dashed towards Naruto. He wasn't gonna let this kid kill Haku on his watch. Raising his massive sword, he brought it down with as much force as he could muster. As the Jonin and master of his sword, that was a lot of force. Naruto simply raised his hand and caught the blade. He held it between his thumb and fingers. Everyone was in shock. Zabuza tried adding more pressure, but it was futile. Naruto held the blade, but it was simple but powerful grip. The blade didn't budge an inch. Yeah, you're in my way, Naruto said. Move. Naruto raised his free hand and clawed it. Naruto raised his free and clawed hand. With powerful aim, he jabbed Zabuza, impaling his hand into the older ninja. With strength only a ninja could muster his raise he could muster. He raised Zabuza into the air. Without looking around, he tossed the Jonin to the side. He didn't need to look. Zabuza landed on a bush of spikes, each spike impaling him, going straight through to the other side. Even though they stuck through, none of them were fatal. It was like the brass keeping me alive for some reason. Naruto made his way towards Haku. The fear had been nice, he thought. Now it's time for some despair. Haku looked up and saw a shadowy figure coming towards her. It was Zabuza. He stood over her, raising his sword. Zabu-sama, she asked. What are you doing? You are a broken tool, Haku, he stated coldly. I no longer have any use for you. Haku couldn't believe what she was hearing. The only one that gave her purpose in life was tossing her aside. He was going to kill her. No, Zabu-sama, she began. Not him. It's just like all those years ago. Just like her father, Zabuza brought his sword down. Haku acted on all of her battle instincts. Using her bloodline, she commanded the water on the bridge. Using her control, she raised ice spears, impaling Zabuza through different spots, each one a fatal wound. Haku looked in shock at what she had done. Yeah, really were a defective tool, he gasped. He fell limp and dead. No, she whispered. No, 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 she cried. Zabu-sama, wake up, wake up, she begged. She melted the ice and ran towards his body. As she fell upon it, begging him to live, she heard it. Laughter. She turned to the side and saw the source. Naruto. He is not dead, he stated, but it must be nice to know you would have killed him. Haku stared in disbelief. Naruto pointed towards Zabuza right there before her eyes. He faded away. He then pointed to the real Zabuza, stuck in and restrained by the spikes. Naruto raised his sword to finish her. Well, what do we have here? Spoke a voice, stopping Naruto. It seems the demon of the mist was all talk. Gato, what are you doing here? Zabuza asked. Well, Zabuza, Gato started. It has come to my attention that you are too expensive. And so I've decided to end our little agreement. He looked at the bridge. Kill the man. The woman on her knees. This is yours to play with. Naruto had been ready to kill Haku with eager. She can wait though. Naoko wouldn't want me to end like him first. Naruto grabbed his sword and took a new stance. It is one that the QB had taught him. He never used it because it was brutal. Now he would use it without restraint. He eyed each of the bandits. They were also full of confidence. The arrogance wasn't what he wanted. Time for more fear. Remember, kid. Get the blood, the fox reminded, but I get the glory. His blood seemed to convulse as it began to mutate. Fur began to cover half of his face, which became more fox-like. His free hand became like a claw-like. From his backside, 9 glorious tails sprang free. I suggest you all come die quickly, Naruto called. Do it while you still have the chance. These bandits were terrified. Fear makes people do crazy things. The bandits did the craziest thing. They charged Naruto head on. Naruto charged them as well. Naruto impaled the first victim with his sword. Lifting his body up with his sword, he gave a mighty toss. The body crashed, knocking a few over. Naruto ducked under the bridge blade. Standing, he cut the enemy's throat, the one who swung. One tried to run. Naruto ran after him, grabbing him by the back of the head. He forced the bandit to open his mouth. Reaching his hand, he began to tug and pull. With a bit of effort, he ripped the top half of the bandit's head off. More tried to run. Naruto charged after them. With a powerful leap, he landed one of the bandit's shoulders. A second later, he jumped off again. However, the bandit was missing his head. Man, I sure know how to get great head in life. Get ahead in life, Naruto joked. The two closest decided to attack from behind. Their blades made it through and pierced Naruto in the back. He ripped them out, letting loose his tail. His tail impaled many that were foolish enough to be behind him. There were several, each of them one. There was several on each of his tails at a time. He held the bodies high for them to see. Many tried stabbing and beating him. He would either disappear like a mirage or dodge them. He would then slaughter the attacker before moving to the next one. You're a monster, one of the bandits shouted. A demon. Look at him, another cried. He has a tailed beast. Go ahead, count my tails, shouted Naruto. I want the world to know the number. 9 tails, one shouted. QB, another shouted. Let the world know, shouted Naruto. The QB is going to make a comeback. No, QB is dead, Gato shouted. A ninja killed him. Wrong, stated Naruto. The QB is fear, and fear is forever. He looked towards Gato. You, however, aren't. Naruto turned his gaze towards the bandits. He had gained enough fear now. It's time to end this. The jutsu took immediate effect. The bandits were turned on each other. They couldn't tell who was friend or foe. Naruto could have let them go on and let them kill each other until there was none left. Where would be the fun in that? He jumped into the slaughter. Neither Team 7 or Tazuna nor Haku nor even Zabuza could believe what they were seeing. This was a slaughter. Haku, what did that kid do? What did you do to that kid? Asked Zabuza. I didn't do anything, she stated in equal shock. It was the Uchiha. He used that woman as a meat shield. Is she dead? Asked Zabuza. No, she's just sleeping, explained Haku. Wake her up, ordered Zabuza. Wake her up now. Haku was already moving towards the body. She began to remove the needles from Anko. Unfortunately, Naruto saw her. And even in death, you won't give her peace, he shouted. Naruto made his way towards Haku. Each step was deliberate, each drawing in more fear. Haku had removed the last of the needles. She was now shaking. Uncle, wake up already! Haku shouted as Naruto stood above her. He raised his sword. 5 more minutes, Uncle mumbled. Head behind? He asked in shock. Uncle's eyes snapped open. She looked around as the memories began to flood her head. She looked into the ones She looked into the eyes of the one who called her. Naru-chan? She asked as she took his full appearance. He quickly dropped the genjutsu and allowed her to see his true form to appear. As he looked into her eyes, he saw many things, but not fear. She's not afraid, he thought in confusion. It soon turned into happiness. She's not afraid. Monster, came a shout from Gato, you're a demon. All eyes turned to the forgotten tyrant. He stood in front of a pile of bodies. Only a few were still breathing. Naruto would spare them. They could tell what happened that would bring in tons of fear. The demon of the mist stood. Even though he was wounded with lethal. His wound was lethal. He had enough energy to raise his sword. He pointed it towards Gato. Gato, called Zabuza, before I die, I am killing you. With a mighty heave, he sent the blade flying. Gato only smirked, taking a step to the side. He waited for the blade to pass him. He noticed Naruto smile. The blonde mouthed one word, invert. Invert asked, what are you talking about? He never received an answer. The blade that was supposed to pass him did. It passed right through him. Now it was lodged inside him. He fell to his knees. He had never felt any pain as excruciating. He had never felt fear so potent. As he looked up, he met the eyes of Naruto. Fox glare. He was in a small dungeon. Where am I? He asked to no one. You are in my realm, Naruto said, appearing from thin air. And here I control space, time, and reality. Why am I here? Before you die, Gato, you are going to give me some information, stated Naruto. And then you can die. I won't get squat from the monster, Gato stated defiantly. Oh, I'll get squat, Gato, he assured. I'll get squat. Burn in hell, Gato shouted. Such a limited imagination, Naruto asked. Down these dark, degraded are of your pain. I'll make that sword in you feel like a memory of pleasure. Gato knew he was trapped. He did one thing a worm like him could do. He began to cry and beg. Don't cry, Gato, Naruto sighed. It's such a waste of good suffering. What are you going to do to me? He asked. I'm going to make you feel everything done to every single person in Wave, Naruto stated coldly. Every last man, woman, and child. He smiled coldly. Towards the tyrant, I will repeat it over and over again because hell is repetition. Gato had long since been broken. Naruto just wanted him to suffer for his crimes. He, rep- he repeated the torture over and over and over again. When Naruto was finished, Gato embraced death. Said the blonde. Inside, the fox glared. Years have passed. In reality, it was only a second. Kid, Haku, Zabuza called. Come here a second. Naruto knew Zabuza was dying, but he was cautious. Even near death, he was dangerous. He tossed that sword half a bridge away. Yes, they asked. I'm dying, he stated calmly. He accepted his death. No Zabuzama. No Zabu-sama, Haku protested. We can get you help from where, the man asked. I accept my fate. I just have a single request for both of you. Whatever is it, Zabuza-sama? I want you to take my sword, he unheard to Naruto and Haku. Wait, you want me to do what? Naruto asked. I don't care what you do with the sword, he stated. Sell it, give it away, or even gamble it away. Zabu-sama, you can't. I can and I did, he stated. I want you to go with this boy. As you wish, she stated. I can save you, Naruto stated. And you can continue to leave. What's the catch? 3 things, he stated. The first, I want you two to come back with Konoha with me and become ninjas. The second, I want you to free Haku. She can make her own choices. And the third, Zabuza asked. I want the rabbit, Naruto shouted. I need rabbits too. Deal. Naruto drew his blade and cut himself across the arm. It was deep enough for the blood to flow freely, but not lethal. To him, at least. He held his arm and allowed it to fall into Zabuza's mouth. The battle was over. Naruto had saved Zabuza, Haku, and his Heim. They would be coming back with them to join Konoha. Now Naruto just wanted his heavy Heim to enjoy the fact that she was alive. Naruto, Uncle asked in his arms, what are you thinking about? There, however, was one problem. I just killed them, he stated. I killed every last one of those bandits. The guilt of their first kill, Naruto, she spoke. I know exactly what you feel. Everyone has their first kill. Although so few ninjas have ever killed in a large scale. Do they enjoy it? He asked tonelessly. Anko had no answer. The only one she could think of was her sensei. There has to be an explanation. I know the fact is that Naruto isn't a monster. Naruto, I hear that you used a technique after I was knocked out, she stated. It was a genjutsu I learned from, he hesitated, but never told them. From the QB. He felt her arm tense. He could feel her a bit nervous creep into her. He did not enjoy it. What does it do? She asked. It has 3 stages, he explained. The first traps them in a paralyzation of fear. The second is more potent, and it freezes the victim's lungs. And the third, she asked. When used on a user, it increases them to their maximum potential, he stated. It allows me to use Katsune illusions and other genjutsus without restraint. That's it? She asked, losing hope. It helps me merge with the QB. He trailed off. The answer was that was the answer. He wasn't a monster. Naruto, that jutsu practically turns you into the Kyuubi, she stated. I don't want you to use it unless it's necessary. Okay, he agreed. He would have agreed to anything at the moment a thought occurred. Did someone ever free Sakura from the Genjutsu? Who cares? She asked. The bridge. Citizens of Waves, shouted Tazuna. The bridge is complete. Citizens of Wave, shouted Tazuna. The bridge is now complete. Cheers followed from every civilian. They were directed towards the one standing, Tazuna. What will you name it? One civilian yelled. How about we name it after the true hero? He asked. How about the Great Naruto Bridge? Sasuke, who had stepped forward expecting the glory stood in disbelief. They wanted to name it after the dope? Over me? An Uchiha? Hey, you shouldn't name it after the Baka, shouted Sakura. You should name it after Sasuke-kun. He is much better. I will not be naming the bridge after that traitor, spat Tazuna with such venom. He heard what happened. Your Uchiha isn't nearly as great as Naruchan, cheered Anko. This got shouts of protest from Sakura. Tazuna spoke Kakashi from his book. It would seem you are playing favorites. That wouldn't be fair. That's the pot calling the kettle black, everyone thought. It would be better to name it something else. Who likes the name I gave? Asked Tazuna to the citizens. His answer was an ocean of cheers from the citizens. The name stays, he stated to Kakashi. Let's go. They made their way back to the village hidden in the leaves. Alright, so that's the end of part 7, chapter 7. Thanks for listening or watching. I forgot to say this, but in all the parts, the story, if you want to read it by yourself, it's in the description. And it should continue to be in the description through all the videos. Alright, thanks.